The following program contains adult language, poor taste in jokes, racial slurs, political slurs, slants, and all sorts of things that if you are sensitive and have a delicate constitution, you should probably go watch Teletubbies. You were warned.
Hey kids, welcome back to Roto Talk.
Kids, welcome back. Happy Sunday. It has been a hot minute since we've been doing stuff. So, sorry for the delay, but the weather's been a bag of ass, family's been busy, yada, 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 yada. So, where we left off last time, we had glued down our top. We used fiberglass, and I really don't remember the last thing I said in the last video, so I'm just, might be repeating myself, but what a great process. Now, the difference between fiberglass resin and epoxy, the biggest difference, well, I don't know if it's the biggest, but epoxy resin has some elasticity to it. If you take some wax paper and pour some epoxy on it, let it sit, mix it up, let it sit, then take some fiberglass resin, do the same thing. When you pick it up, you will snap, you can snap the fiberglass resin where the epoxy will bend. Okay, that's good and bad, depending on your application. Personally, I want everything good and hard as a rock.
Can I ask you a personal question? Sure. You ever get an erection over a woman?
You know, take it with a grain of salt, but this process worked great. This top is on there so good. I mean, and this boat is so strong. I can't even flex hardly. These engine rails, I sealed the entire boat on the inside with fiberglass resin. I did not use the fiberglass cloth because I used a thickened version of fiberglass resin in here. If you don't do it that way, use the cloth just like the manual. I believe Joe says to use the fiberglass cloth in epoxy resin. Go ahead and do that, or do it my way. My way will work fine. It will not. This thing will hold together. I promise you. The stability is just great. I love it. It works really good. Easy to work with. It does stink a lot. It's cheaper. It's just as fast as 3 hour or 30 minute. Love it. Good stuff. So we still need to sand the boat. We still need to plane all the edges. The back side here, the one thing I did do without you, I apologize, is I put in the L's for the rear hatch. Okay, so very, very simple. Just basically divide this in half-ish, and you're just going to epoxy it, clamp it on there. Do that one, do this one. This, use the long bar in the middle here, just split the difference, very simple. Then take your hatch, the two little pieces, and it goes over this in the manual, and then it hooks in just like that. Now, I think the kit comes with, if I'm not mistaken, 2 nylon screws that you can use to hold your hatch down, that you'll just drill holes through here. You slide this in, da-da-da-da. I don't do it that way. I actually use hatch tape on mine, but you can do whatever you want. So, that's done. The next thing we're going to do, and if you have any questions on that, send me a message, but I figured I could skip it. It's pretty common sense on how to do this stuff. That stuff. Okay. Now, the manual also states, I think, I just looked at it, and I'm not sure if I haven't looked at one of these manuals in many years, so I'm doing it wrong. But Joe recommends that you put all the hardware on and whatnot before you put the top on. I never do. I always put the top on. I like most everything in place before I do that stuff. But, you know, follow the manual. It's fine. Now, one thing I do is I will do a rough sand on the bottom. Get off any goo that you've got. If you had to put a skunk stripe in, which is what I call this, you can see this reflection right here. I still don't have my angle sanded totally properly, but we're going to put our strakes on. Do the rough sand first, because once you get these strakes in, complete pain in the butt. All right. So here's your strakes. Now, what you want to do, strake side down. Well, I guess, yeah, down. Line it up with the laser lines and glue the bitch down. It's not hard. I use CA glue, and then I go over it with a super thinned 10-minute epoxy. Very, very simple. Okay. And I'll show you how I do it. A lot of people may or may not disagree. But what you want to do is take a sanding block. Of course, hang on. All right, you just take a sanding block, and you're going to take this edge, and you're going to put a little bit of a taper on it, just to make it look groovy. So the bottom side, it makes the water shed better. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not the space shuttle. Okay. Just like that. So when it does lay down, it lays down nice and flat. Okay. See that? Stuck a razor blade through the tip of my thumb earlier, and it kept bleeding like a stuffed pig, and there's no good way to bandage it. So I just put super glue on it, sprayed it with activator. That's some hot shit, man, when that stuff activates, but yeah, pretty gross. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how that's real sharp edge. I'm going to bevel it a little bit more. Okay, you got to remember, this part isn't even in the water anyway. This is kind of a moot point. On the Vbox cracker, this is exceptionally important. This boat, this part's more for looks, the sanding. You still need the strakes. All right, so we're going to do that. And I'm going to take some CA glue and just, that's all we're going to do. I'm going to use medium. Okay, and I'm going to put it just on this end. Hopefully you can see this. Okay, I'm going to line it up. I'm just going to hold it there. Until it cures up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slowly lay it across. Okay. So I'm basically going to just take my needle, put it through there, just keep laying this down until it gets about here, then just hold it down. And she'll be nice and tight. Ah! There goes the fingers. Alright, so we put a little bit under here. Because again, I'm going to seal this with thin epoxy. Alright, very, very, very simple. So if you're multi-ambidextrous here, we're going to go ahead and put just like that. Again, always staying within that laser line. And I'm going to do a nice spread. Give it a second. I am using medium. You can use thin. I've got my thin CA. Either way. Real simple process here. No big deal. It's amazing, though, how important these are, because you will not turn worth a bag of ass if you do not put your strakes on properly. Okay. So, let's try some thin. I don't use thin a whole lot. But it's nice because it really soaks in fast, but it also dries super fast too. And that can be a little daunting. And it doesn't... Sometimes it soaks in so fast you can't get a decent bond. But it looks like it's working okay. Alright, so we're going to do the rest of this. Hang on, can. Nice thing about thin is it's dries so fast, and even if you're messy with it, it doesn't drip. It just absorbs right into the wood. Now, don't worry about the length. This doesn't match up perfectly. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Okay, that's it. Easy. Okay. So then we're going to do the exact same thing with the other side. CA it down. If you want to, you can epoxy and weight it. If you really want to, I think it's going to take you a lot longer to do. And it's hard to see the placement of the lines when you're weighting it down. I don't like doing that. So let me go ahead and do this other side, and we'll be right back. We are back. Ugh, this thing is nasty. Look at that. Ugh. All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to mix up some epoxy, and we're going to thin her out with some denatured alcohol. Now, we are going to seal this whole boat. If you were going to seal it with West Systems epoxy, which I don't do, you probably could skip this step. Actually, I think I'll use a disposable cup for this one. Because West Systems is epoxy, it's just thin. They charge you more for less, that's all. But in my case, I'm probably sealing it with just automotive clear coat, which really doesn't add any strength. it doesn't add any strength. Let's put it that way. It's such a nominal amount that it's negligible. Okay, so I'm taking some 10-minute. I'm just going to thin the crap out of it, about 10%. Whenever you're thinning epoxy or fiberglass resin, they thin the same way. I usually use acetone to thin fiberglass. Epoxy, I usually use alcohol, denatured alcohol. Never thin it more than 10%. It won't cure worth a shit. At least epoxy or fiberglass won't. Okay, there we go. Then we're just going to take an epoxy brush. It's pretty thin, pretty like finishing epoxy, and I'm just going to go along this edge. Real simple. Doesn't have to be pretty because we're going to knock it with the sander a little bit. Okay. Just gives it a little bit more bearing. That way when it's in the boat stand waddling around and whatever, it doesn't get, these don't pop off. That's a bad day at the zoo, right? Do your paint job, looks real nice. You know, you're into it a couple months and all of a sudden somebody hits your boat stand or you hit your boat stand and bam, strakes come off. That would suck. You have bad, screwed up paint job and everything else. So this is just a precautionary thing, no big deal. Just some 10-minute epoxy, nothing fancy. Thin the hell out of it. Like I said, if you're going to use West Systems or something, you know, you can skip this. These don't take a ton of pressure. Okay, that's it. Now, what else have we do? The next thing we're going to do is take our plane, the magic plane, the 747 plane. This thing. Hang on. Sorry about that. The wife and kids just came back from their walk and they took our dog, who's a hound dog, and he's just covered in mud and she's freaking out, giving him a bath. It's been a long life. But anyway, so we got strakes on. So I'm going to go ahead and plane this down and I'm going to give it a good sanding with probably 80 grit, 150 grit, something like that, just to get the shape out our nose. We're going to plane all the edges off, get everything rock and roll with that. Then we're going to flip it over and we're going to start we're dry fitting hardware, and we're going to put in our shaft and our radio box, and then we'll disassemble it and paint it. Actually, this one's probably going to get hydro dipped. Believe it or not, I'm going to try to hydro dip this huge boat. Stay tuned for that. That should be a nightmare. But anyway, that'll be it. So a short one tonight, and tomorrow we'll do the hardware. We'll knock this pig out because this all needs to cure up. So until next time, kids, thanks for watching. Keep dry side up. Bye.
So cold.